All right, welcome in everyone. I'm very excited to kick off round one of the Battle of the Gods here. I am Scorch13, and alongside me for this match is Scream112. How are you doing today, Scream?
Oh, I'm awesome. Coming home to do this is the highlight of the day. So really excited to get into this.
Awesome. We've got Luuu90 kind of making his return to Faeria now after a bit of an absence. One of the long-standing players, bringing in a Three Wishes. We'll have to see what kind of the main color of the deck is there. And Engywook making his first tournament appearance. Playing what looks to be more of the red-yellow. We'll have to see if it's control or more of the burn style that we've been seeing. What do you think about these?
Oh, seeing Lou bringing Three Wishes, and also, like you said, coming back from a period of absence from Faeria. I think he was focusing on his studies. I am in camp Lou right now. I'm rooting for him. Day of the Dragons, Luuu90 go. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, very interesting to see that here. We'll have to see if it ends up being maybe like a Dream at the end, because Dream of Dragons was a deck that was kind of experimented with for quite a while back. I think about the time when Lou was very prominent in the Faeria scene. And Aurora's Creation too, this is a very interesting deck here.
The problem I see Lou having here is that Engy is going pretty aggressive with his list. And a Three Wishes list is not a very fast list, right? So how does he defend here? That's going to be the question, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. A Three Wishes is very slow. Even some of the other cards that we're seeing here, something like the Aurora's Creation, he needs to get to 3 lakes, and then to get to the Three Wishes needs 2 extra deserts, 2 extra mountains past some of these extra requirements. Whereas Engywook just rushing straight down the middle, expect probably he'll go for that Underground Brigand in hand and start really putting the pressure on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Magida though, this could help, maybe? I don't know. Will it?
I think it really depends on what he gets. Right now, if he gets something like Tethra or Aurora that he can actually play on an upcoming turn, maybe it's something that can be good. Right now, it doesn't look like he'll have a safe enough position to play her, though, just because if this ends up being Ground Shaker, yeah, for Engywook, this is a very strong position.
This is obviously super strong. 5/6, and he has Kalim's training on hand, which is the flying in charge too. Like anything Lou plays now, the 5/6 can reach.
Yeah, I actually like Engywook going for the Underground Brigand as well here, just because, like you mentioned, the Kalim's training to give flying and the Flash Wind for the little bit of extra mobility really give him a lot of reach. Not only to what the Ground Shaker can reach, but even something smaller played off to the side. This Underground Brigand is still going to be able to contest that. Looking like a good position for Engywook here.
It is looking really, really one-sided at this point. Like we can obviously see both players' hands, and so can the viewers. There's not much Lou can do here, to be honest. I don't think a Three Wishes deck like this has anything that can turn this situation around. And it just goes to shows it's the best out of 5. This is the first round, and you don't know what your opponent is bringing, so it will be a little bit of a lottery when it comes to like, oh, you brought like the strongest counter perhaps to my list, then there's not much you can.
Yeah, Engywook going full aggressive here, using both the Kalim's training, like we talked about. Actually going for the orb instead of trading. I think as soon as he saw the mountain come down, he realized that this is a Three Wishes and not just some form of a blue-green coming out from Lou here. And as soon as you see that Three Wishes, it kind of triggers in your mind like, okay, I have to go aggressive. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose the late game, because you can gain so much value through Three Wishes. And of course, getting that healing as well. So just putting Lou on the timer at this point. And some of these cards, again, like I was mentioning earlier, he has to go for the 3rd lake, which reduces how quickly he's going to be able to get to Three Wishes. I'm actually very surprised, going to touch on really quick here, that Lou threw away an Earthcraft in his opening hand, which would have really helped get him towards the Three Wishes right now. Faeria, not something that he's struggling with. He really just needs the cards.
Okay. So he's going Field Experiment into Storm Spawn to gain the extra Faeria. What is he looking to do though? He has to Frogify. That's
Yeah,
way
looks
better.
like he is going to go for the Frogify, uses it on the Ground Shaker, and then the trade. So this does give him a little bit more time. Looks like he's going to go for Magda as well, and just hope that maybe he can get something good of a playable legendary at this point.
Wow.
Didn't quite have the Faeria to go for something like Day of the Dragons into another card, but this is actually very interesting. So Magda doesn't only reduce the cost of legendaries that she creates, also reduces the cost of just any legendary in your deck. So we can actually see Day of the Dragons got that 2 Faeria cost reduction, and if Lou plays that, each of the dragons generated by Day of the Dragons will also get that reduction. So possibly can get to something like a Garridan at a discounted cost there, but it just looks so difficult right now for Lou to come back.
At this point, all NG needs to do is just keep hitting face, and I don't think Lou can bring it back at all. It's too late, but we'll see what he gets, though. Well, except the fact that Radiance actually heals, and it's a 10-10, and it's the only card he could play. He'll heal 4.
Yeah,
Total
will
of
heal up
4.
to 4, puts him at 12 life, a little bit outside of the range here, and actually
Guess he
could
could
use
draw a card.
the dash. I don't think you draw cards at this point because you're still working towards 3 wishes. And I think drawing, even though it does give you that 1 extra life heal,
it's not worth it.
ends up playing a little bit backwards. But what Lou actually could go for is one of either a mountain or a desert, whichever he chooses. Again, working towards that 3 wishes requirement, up on the left-hand side, because then the dash from Radiance could put it in a position where he can attack the orb. Now we see Engywook has a Grimguard, which will kind of stop that race scenario from happening, but it is a line that Lou could go for. It looks like he's just going to play Radiance defensively. What do you think about that, of the defensive versus going for kind of a race situation with this Radiance?
I think you go. Yeah. What's the words I'm looking for? I think you go face. I think this is a spot where playing defensively is, one of these things we say a lot, which is that you play to win, or you play to not to lose, I guess, but to survive. But it might be the losing play. Yeah, I think you have to play to win. And in these situations, when you're behind like this, you don't really have the time to defend, because now he keeps playing these other really great things, and it's just too late. It's just too late.
Yeah, at that point, it actually does look like it ended up being the right decision to play defensive, just because it did block one of the lines from this Scourgeflame Spectre that Engywook was able to draw. The Toad wouldn't have quite been able to be lethal here, but again, yeah, looking very bleak for Lou at this point. Could go for an Aurora's Creation onto Radiance, and that could heal him up again, but it wouldn't be enough of a heal, and I actually don't think he can get enough Faeria to even play it at that point.
I was gonna say, how much does it cost then? It wouldn't be...
Yeah, Radiance is a card that doesn't actually get the discounts, but...
Right.
But yeah, looks like...
Huh. Oh wait, it's a 1 cost then? Okay.
Attacked into the Grimguard, yeah, got the extra burn.
This is actually hilarious, though. If this holds up, he can get another Radiance.
Oh, the Flame Burst pickup.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there's a very smart play by Lou, though. Attacked into the Grimguard, so he took that burn damage. Engywook will take game 1 with the burn there, but that was almost a very good comeback play there. Lou going for that extra burn, so it reduced the cost of Radiance to the point that he was able to play it. Got that heal back up, and again, the power of burn and the cards that you can draw into and the combat effects there, really strong showing. But yeah, a position where Lou almost came back just because of a really smart decision with that attack.
It's still pretty exciting, though. I don't think I've seen 2 Radiance that often. So, but playing against the list that NG was bringing there, I think it was the right play, maybe. It was the only thing he could do. But again, the odds of NG finding the right card, like the Flame Burst, it was very high. So Lou was on the ropes there and had kind of hoped to get lucky. He's bringing red now, though. It looks like red control or red burn.
Yeah, it could be either here with the cards that we're seeing there. Very similar to what Engywook has in yellow if it runs those, or the kind of standard red control that we've been so accustomed to over the course of the more recent metas in Faeria, where you just have all of this removal, deny what your opponent does over and over. We'll have to see if Engywook goes for an aggressive line like he did in that previous game. Just because the starting hand that he has here is actually very slow with Garridan, and now 2 Gift of Steels, just looking like he needs a creature, but actually is going for the rush again. So very interesting coming out.
Crackthorn Beast, new name, art. Yeah, right now this must be my favorite new art. Honestly, like, that is such a cool looking beast. Oh wow. Yeah, I'm impressed.
The Crackthorn Beast, of course, does mean that this is actually a red-green list, something that we've seen be so prominent through recent monthly cups and tournaments just because of the power that it provides. Of course, red has these control tools like we've been talking about, and then green brings in the big buffs so that your creatures can continue to fight and stay alive on the board. So Engywook's just not finding anything to play at this point, though.
I mean, he has Garuden, right? He could. Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but you know, I think he's kind of waiting as well. Like, I mean, he doesn't have anything else, but he's also, you know, in the position where if Luuu plays something else, you know, like an axe grinder, perhaps. I don't know if he wants to play it yet, but if he does, then Garuden could get some value coming out.
Yeah, Luuu actually does have a couple of interesting decisions here. Again, wants to go for the Crackthorn Beast, the same way that we were talking about getting to that 3 wishes in the last game. You have these land requirements on the cards, and you want to make sure that you can get to them as quick as possible. But right now, he could go for something like a double Prairie into Mountain Axe Grinder next turn and start getting very aggressive towards Engywook's Orb. It just looks like he's deciding which way he wants to play that right now. Because that really depends on what Engywook plays next turn. As
it looks like he was planning to put down a mountain.
Yeah, he hovered the forest, hovered the mountain. Just not really sure what to go for at this point. I think this deck doesn't run too many things in the 3 mountain requirement, unless you're running something like Bomb Slingers or Firestorms, but I think Firestorm is a little less frequent. So really, you go to your 2 mountains, and then you can move towards some of the forest cards, and then you get your 3rd mountain for the Crackthorn Beast, or in a good position for something like the Axe Grinder. So I understand his kind of hesitancy.
He's still hesitating. Oh my god. He didn't... Okay, so I was thinking that he would go forest up into maybe even another forest if he has enough forest cards and start walking up, but obviously going into between the wells. But he didn't move the ground shaker there, so he did not set up for double harvesting, which I think is something that could have helped him maybe to get, you know, that extra fairy having double harvesting. But he's obviously worried of what NG will do. And now he gets that set up as
so this is what I was going to say as what he was going to go for. Like you mentioned, could have put the ground shaker into double collection there, but it looked like what he was setting up was exactly this: getting that axe grinder down in a position where it gets the buff from being beside the well, and that meant putting the mountain there meant the ground shaker couldn't actually double collect. So went for the positioning where the axe grinder can be. The Axe Grinder is now in the double collection. The Ground Shaker moves back defensive, but yeah, big Grimguard. Engywook finally
Isn't this
finding
the biggest one you've seen this year?
Going for it right away just because red-green going to not be able to gain a lot of value versus some of these bigger creatures. Luuu does have options in hand to take care of this with the Flame Burst, with the Cypher's Wrath, and looks like he's going to use all of them. But something like playing against blue or yellow when they have Frogafire, Last Nightmare, just as examples of gaining value against your creatures when you go for those preemptive buffs, you don't really have to be worried about those type of cards against something like a mono red or a red green, or even red, mono green for that matter. But so Engywook goes for the preemptive buff onto the Grimguard, and Luuu just has all of this answer. Now I'm actually probably.
Did you see how much he spent though? Like he spent 11 Faeria to deal with a Grimguard that had 2 Gift of Steels on him. So that's like, I guess equal?
He used 11 Faeria to deal with 10 Faeria of cards.
10, okay.
But it was 4 cards for 3 from Engywook's perspective, and all 3 flame bursts, which will reduce the amount of burst that Luuu is able to put down in the late game here. I would expect we'd probably see the Crackthorn Beast, whether it's aggressive right at Engywook's orb or more of a defensive to
have to go aggressive. I mean, again, you kind of have to at this point. Like, if you can put on some counter pressure, it will at least, make it harder for NG to go at it. But okay, he doesn't.
Well, and that was a position where the Crackthorn Beast had to come down there, basically.
That was a mistake.
Unfortunate for Luuu. He canceled the dash, maybe by clicking too quickly.
Oh, the dash.
So if he had played his land aggressive for the Crackthorn Beast dash to be right in front of Engywook's orb, he wouldn't have had a land for his Ground Shaker to step over and kill the other Ground Shaker. So I think that's the positioning here, but looked like he tried to dash onto the desert. Unfortunately, maybe clicked too quickly and it canceled it.
It's been said that people do that sometimes.
Yeah,
I think it's a small window, but it could happen.
It's something like as the creature is coming down onto the board, you can basically click at that point, like as it's landing, and it cancels it. Very small window, like you said, but yeah, unfortunate there. Now that does mean that the Ground Shaker could trade into the Crackthorn Beast here, which is possibly better actually for Luuu. Keeps his 7/7 Ground Shaker fully healthy, but we'll have to see what Engywook does as a follow-up here. Going for the Orb, Kaleem's training and Flashwind is a possibility. Maybe even moving the Ground Shaker around the Crackthorn Beast with the Flashwind here, using the Cypher's Wrath to kill off the 7/7, but doesn't really accomplish anything in terms of getting something to stick on the board here for Engywook. So he's kind of in a tough position, and this has kind of gone back to just not having something in hand right from the start of the game.
This is... We're using every last second here. Let's see.
Yeah, he's actually going to go for the orb then. Very surprised by that decision there. An Elderwood Embrace is fantastic for Luuu.
Yeah, that's going to help. I kind of think he might be eyeing that Garuden, trying to get as much face damage in.
And one of the things with this style of deck, with the burn, is that you have your Grimguards, your Scourgeflame Spectres, if it's running Shed and Brutes. Obviously, those cards have their combat burn anyway. But sometimes it's very important for you to get even just one attack to the orb with something like this Ground Shaker. That 6 damage can be massive over the course of a game.
Oh yeah, definitely. It could make or break the end of the game here. There we go. Aggressive Ground Shaker. No, it's not a Ground Shaker. It's an Axe Grinder.
Yeah, so Luuu looking in a very good position here. Has 3 Wells harvesting, has creatures to block the attack angles of Engywook here. Although that Scourgeflame Spectre could come down and hit the orb, and that'll actually be a little difficult for Luuu to clean up just because of the extra combat burn that it's going to deal to the orb here. That's kind of one of the things of Red-Green is it is a deck that wants to fight. It has creatures, it has buffs, and then the events to finish off your creatures after they're reduced in power from the combat. But the burn deck also wants to fight, just because it has that combat burn.
I'm looking at Engywook's hand, and I'm thinking, man, he's a few Faeria short, right? Like, he has 9. If he +1, he can play Garuden, which doesn't clear anything but 1 creature, right? Does set up for some nice plays next turn, perhaps, but he has no Harvester. He doesn't have any income, and Luuu is harvesting from 3 wells, and that's a huge advantage. So to be honest, I think Luuu is he's just way ahead at this point. Even though he did like a little bit of a misplay according to himself here, it ended up being okay.
Yeah, I actually don't like the Garrison here, although it does deal a lot of damage, clears off that double collector and the Axe Grinder. It doesn't really accomplish anything. Now, unfortunately, Luuu doesn't have the Faeria to play the Crackthorn Beast, but that would have allowed the Axe Grinder to kill off Garrison. And I think just the positioning... Luuu could have very easily...
He had no land.
Yeah, he couldn't have dealt with it afterwards because of the land, but I think Luuu had so many options that could have easily dealt with Garrison thanks to this Axe Grinder positioning that just Engywook wasn't punished here, but I think could have been very punished in that spot.
I think this is where Engywook can try and come back. I think harvesting with Garudin might be the thing, and Cypher's Wrath, the Axe Grinder, that's two. I think that's how he's gonna defend, and then maybe save some Faeria for the next turn. I think we'll see what happens. Like I don't see any other play obviously. Like where Kalim's training, great. What yeah. So I think he just waits. Because now he has double harvesting.
that is the play that he goes for, and that is his way back into the game, like you mentioned, getting this Garrett in a position where he can start to gain some Faeria, get to a point where he can just drop a Scourge Flame Spectre, and then follow up with another one on the following turn type of thing for that late game burst that he's looking for. Ooh. 5, very close here for Lou. I would not be surprised with a preemptive Elderwood Embrace onto this Crackthorn Beast. Make Engywook invest some of his resources into dealing with that. Actually goes for the defensive one instead. That's a bit interesting to me, actually.
Well, 5. There's only 2 damage left he needs to do. All right.
Yeah, but so it just...
If Engywook, what's the play here, then?
He has to clear the Crackthorn Beast because any other buff allows Lou to
draw
take
a card
the game.
before you do anything here. You do draw a card now.
I don't see. Else. Yeah, I don't really see a better line.
I mean, how happy are you that Garudin
I guess it's going to have to be Ground Shaker just because Engywook wants to keep up the pressure, but maybe he goes for the Shed and Brood instead. But I really think that was a position if Lou had played the Elderwood Embrace on the Crackthorn Beast to ensure that it survived at least initial combat against Garudin, Engywook would have had to invest more resources, and that allows Lou to then retake advantage that Engywook had built up. And he actually goes for a save there, creating another attack line for a Scourge Flame Spectre next turn. And Lou does pick up the Elderwood Embrace, so a smart decision by Engywook to clear, but the Grove Caller here, a great pickup.
GG!
And Lou will take game number 2 and even it up at 1-1.
So this is best of 5. It's 1-1. It's very, very interesting so far.
Yeah, building up to be a great series here at 1-1. A couple kind of interesting decisions there. I liked a lot of the plays really from both players, and I think Engywook was kind of unfortunate to not have a creature to play until that big Grim Guard that he put down. If he had had something like the Underground Boss that he started with in game 1, it could have been very good. But going for a green-yellow sacrifice here as a counter. Now, This is interesting because the red actually has a lot of ways to deal with some of these smaller creatures. So I'm not 100% sure about this deck selection here from Engywook.
Yeah, but it was between this and another one, right? So, whatever the other one is, maybe he thinks the other one wasn't much better.
It's tough to say at this point. Like you said, we're not sure what he's really playing, but if it was something like a mono blue, I think that can be very strong against red green. Of course, red green. You're
assuming it's mono blue.
Yeah, that's if it is that. It can be.
It could have been a
strong.
mirror, maybe. I don't know if he has the ability to have the sacrifice and another. Like maybe red green. Yeah, then he's not able to with the list he was playing.
Yeah, we'll have to see what it ends up being. But for now, a good start with the Bone Collector, although it very likely gets cleared by Lou next turn. Having some of these red, like I mentioned, very easily deals with some of the smaller stuff here.
Yeah.
Solier, a great card to pick up later in the game. Definitely not something that Engywook wants at this point, but is going towards the deserts, possibly for a last nightmare. We'll have to see if he actually goes for the Lord of the Wastes here, just because if he's expecting that the Bone Collector is going to die to some form of event coming out of Lou, maybe he goes for that Lord of the Wastes play. But what do you think about that this early into the game?
Let's just admire Soul Eater's art. It's so good. Yeah, he has to do that play. I mean, he knows. Like, you should expect that the Soul Eater would go to maybe a Cypher's Wrath or whatever, right? And at this moment, it's so early that Lou has no forest, means that Elderwood Embrace cannot save the Ground Shaker. So he 3 health, which is low, and it is a bit dangerous against red. We know Lu plays Flame Burst, so if he had a Flame Burst now, that would have been coming down, but he had to do that trade right now.
Yeah, and Lu does take the trade, dashing his warrior forward, actually.
No, I think it's good. Like that's such a cool move. He can play that dash forward. This allows some aggressive land placements next. We don't see any way for NG to clear this, and just having that one aggressive forest later for using that Groove Collar might be a very good land placement. I think it's great that it did that.
Yeah, that's a very good thing to point out is getting that maybe aggressive forest like he's looking for. I would expect Engywook should try to take maybe the Axe Grinder position away with a land here, but that does allow Lu to then step back into double collection. So it looks like Engywook's just going aggressive, which is very interesting because Soul Eater has the charge 3, which means it can reach almost anywhere on the map once it does come down. So you don't need aggressive lands for this deck into the late game. So
I'm not sure why that was. I would have probably rather. Yeah. The thing is this. He had the opportunity there to last Nightmare the Sagami Warrior, which have been obviously horrible value-wise. But he didn't have much other place to do. And also another thing to point out about the Sagami Warrior placement is that what if Engywook had any, low-life creatures that he needed to play to then sacrifice, the warrior could, trade or even, just deal with them. Oh, he gets a mountain, which is probably for the ground shake.
Yeah, I actually really like this play by Lu going for the aggressive line. Soul Eater wants to build towards the late game. It doesn't really care too much if the early creatures are cleared, because that just builds the power of the Soul Eater eventually. So Lu going aggressive in this spot where he's going to try to end the game before Engywook can really get to those positions. Now, it does have the Last Nightmare in hand, so maybe Engywook can catch up that way, and the Shaitan Assassin is going to be difficult to deal with as well.
I feel bad for Engywook here a little bit, but he does have the Imperial guards that he can get out, because obviously a Shaitan Assassin without protection against a deck that runs Ground Shaker is just unfortunate, right? So he does need protection, and even then, obviously, again against the Ground Shakers and such, the Assassin isn't as deadly, but.
Yeah, we're going to see that Lu has a great answer to this Assassin right away with the Ground Shaker and the Cypher's Wrath. And that's almost just as unfortunate because of the line that Engywook went for. Because he played the Lord of the Waste and sacrificed his early Bone Collector, because he was expecting Lu would have a Cypher's Wrath in that spot to kill it off, is actually allowed Lu to hold on to that Cypher's Wrath and then now use it on the Shaitan Assassin. And now it's actually very difficult for Engywook to catch back up at this point, unless he just goes for a Soul Eater.
It's like you're trying to say that, it's Engywook's fault that Lu had the Cypher's Wrath in hand. It's again, I'm not sure that green yellow sacrifice is a very strong deck against the red green.
Yeah, it's just the way that it plays out, right? Like the early play that he made with the sacrifice was because he was afraid of that Cypher's Wrath. And if he had allowed that to survive, the Cypher's Wrath would have been gone. The Assassin maybe could have survived in that. It's just a kind of an awkward way.
But he had no other creature to play. Like I feel like Engywook, like he did the play he did the only play he could do, and he had to play something. So it's tough.
Yeah, looking like a very good position for Lu here. 8 possible damage to the face, maybe 10 if he chooses to go for the Elderwood Embrace. He can spread the power out a little bit. So even something like a Last Nightmare that's in Engywook's hand, even though he won't be able to play it, Lu will still have enough power on the board. And going for that land so that Engywook can't play something like a Wood Elemental or like the other Imperial Guard for a taunt here. And that's going to seal the game for Lu in a very decisive fashion.
It also goes to show that losing the first round doesn't mean anything.
Usually we say that, usually we say that winning the first game gives you such an advantage because then you kind of go counter deck for counter deck. Usually that's best of 3 we're talking about. In best of 5s, when you have that extra deck that you can bring, it just opens up so many more options throughout the course of the series. And even with the little bit of the nerf that we saw to Crackthorn Beast with the release of 1.0, the deck is still so strong. Red green here. And it actually is a mono blue coming out from Engywook. Forbidden Library, Dream Reavers in there are going to be very late cards. So we'll have to see if Lou goes aggressive again like he did the last game.
And Runaan's Guidance, which we didn't see in the previous 2 matches. We never saw Runaan's Guidance, I think.
No, we didn't see a guidance there. We saw the Elderwood Embraces for the buffs, but Runaan's Guidance also gives you the versatility of being able to heal yourself. So it's a card that's kind of been discussed back and forth of include versus not include of do you want the extra buff from Elderwood Embrace or the versatility of the heal from Runaan's Guidance. So Lou actually running both of them here.
He threw away the library. I thought that would be like one of the important cards in a list that actually has him.
Yeah, I think library's tough right now, just because it has the 4 lake requirement. It's a dead card in your hand essentially for the first 3 turns, so you want something else that you can play, unless you have a water elemental, which I think is maybe the dream start for a deck like this, getting water elemental and then accelerating towards your Forbidden Library very quickly. But has the Spring Mochi as well, which will allow that discount whenever it comes up. I think library is something that you want to draw on the first kind of few turns or into the mid game to allow you to take off at that point. I think it's not something that's generally kept in the opening hand just because it is so deep into the requirements there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're saying that, if you had the right other cards with the library, like the elemental, then it would be okay to keep.
Yeah, it's not quite as powerful as what it used to be when the card came out, right? When you could play it on turn 2 and start getting that extra Faeria and the extra cards. When it's now a dead card in your hand for the first couple turns, I think it's very difficult to justify keeping it versus getting something like the Imperial Guard, the Aurora that Engywook has now played. But again, that is just my kind of thought on it with its current state, is that you want it a little later into the game instead of being unplayable for the first couple turns.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised to see it at all. I don't think it's, because of the reasons that it's, if you get it too late, then it's too late, and you can't play it that early, so you gotta keep it on your. Like I figured you would keep it on your hand because, well, you have it now. You eventually gonna be able to play it, perhaps, but. Yeah, I don't think the library is that strong of a card, and we don't know how many he's running in the list. But he's running Radiance, Dream Reaver. It's quite he needs a lot of lakes, and it's also quite the expensive list. So he needs these discounts from the Moki, for example. So he's gonna just sit back, I think, here.
Oh, unfortunate there for Engywook. He went for the Aurora onto the Imperial Guard, just to keep it healthy. Versus some of the things that red can do, like the Ground Shaker, like the Cypher's Wrath that we saw in the last game. That meant he didn't go for the Spring Mochi, and then drew Mirror Phantasm, and it's not discounted. The discount goes maybe onto something else, but just kind of unfortunate there that Mirror Phantasm, if it got the discount from Spring Mochi, could be a very good accelerating point for Engywook when these creatures start to come together.
It's a little bit of RNG. We don't have a ton of RNG in Faeria, but this is one of those few things, right? Like which all card games has, you drawing the right cards and stuff like that. Now having the Moki played, whichever next card that he draw that has 7 or higher Faeria cost will cost 3 less. Which, like you pointed out, he did miss the Mirror Phantasm discount there if he would have played it a turn earlier. But
yeah, gets the water elemental here. I actually would have liked to see this in the opposite order. The lake right below the Imperial Guard, the same way that he stepped down, but have the water elemental reinforce that guard on the left-hand side instead of all of these creatures clumped on the right. This does open up.
Doing over there?
Yeah, this does open up the water elemental to double prairie down and jump to double collect for Engywook, but just not quite a position that you want to be in because you want to go for those lakes. Like you were talking about, getting to the Dream Reaver is a very big investment here.
What a buff.
Yeah, great series of buffs here. But like I mentioned, if that water elemental had been on the left side to reinforce, that's something where you go maybe Mirror Phantasm and clear and you're in a position where you've then stabilized the left side. So a little bit of not necessarily misplay from Engywook, but maybe not the optimal of planning for future turns, just because all of his creatures are clumped up in the right top corner
So
here.
the discounts stack. So if you place the
Yes.
Moki now, then he has a six Faeria discount on the next card he draws that is a 7 or higher. Could be quite the discount.
Yeah, it could be very good onto something like a Mirror Phantasm, getting it down to 1. Maybe even we see a Windfall and get it down to only 4 cost, and you can really accelerate your Faeria that way. Engywook actually in a difficult position right now because he could go for Spring Mochi +1 and Mirror Phantasm.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That looks like that's the play that he's going to go for onto the left side here. So
yeah, and why wouldn't like this? This looks to be the only play, and why wouldn't you? Play the Moki, get the discount, play Mirror Phantoms, get the buff, so it can trade with the warrior, and now we have 2 5/5s on the left side to try and slow down the game a little bit.
Yep, another kind of awkward play because instead of going for the +1 Faeria, he could have just double prairied and jumped his water elemental down. So it just, a couple kind of awkward things coming out. The buff does go on to, wow, this is a big Crackthorn Beast play.
Amazing. Wait, why is Lou saying amazing? He's the one doing the amazing play. Why?
Oh, the 1-cost Mirror Phantasm like we talked about, though. Great pickup here.
And do you think, would it be the water elemental you go on? Like, who do you buff?
Yeah, I think you go for the water elemental. You can double prairie and jump to reach the Crackthorn Beast. Yeah, I think that's a good enough play at this stage. The big problem here is that Engywook has kind of lost control over the top left corner, which meant that Lou has 2 wells harvested right now, whereas Engywook only has 1 into the top corner. Whoa. Yeah, okay. I was like, that looked a little awkward at the start there, but actually moving the Mochi over so that he can try to get the Mirror Phantasm into a more protected position is going to go for that trade like we talked about, and then he's setting up for his Mochi to be in a position where it can finish off the 9-1 Sagami Warrior
he wants to keep his 5/5. But look and behold the Embrace that will maybe buff the Sagami Warrior even more. We'll see.
I think Groundshaker is a fantastic pickup. You can go for that and clear Aurora. That means the Mirror Phantasm has to step across if Engywook wants to continue to collect Faeria there, and that really decreases that power again. So goes for the preemptive buff, which I think is probably correct because it does survive against the Spring Mochi, but possibly in a position where it gets punished by Frogify if Engywook's able to draw into that.
Wait, he's not playing the Groundshaker? Okay.
No, not going to go for the Groundshaker here. Very interesting.
Oh, wait, how many likes does he have? He has a 5, and it requires 7. -3 gift, set a God's Life to 10. Yeah, Dream Reaver, also a very slow card.
Yeah, not quite in a good enough position to play it here. Dream Reaver actually could have been very strong to get the discounts from the Spring Mochis, but...
But then he would have been still 2 lakes behind. Like, it's,
Yeah, still would have been off from playing. I was going to say, should go for the card draw here to try to find a Frogify, and does get it. That'll help Engywook solidify a little bit. But this is going to be a big clear for Lou, and I actually like the passive play that he went for. So instead of the Groundshaker like we talked about last turn, Lou went for the Axe Grinder here because if basically the exact series of the play... that happened played out. The Axe Grinder attacks into the Mirror Phantasm, Groundshaker comes down and clears both Aurora and the Phantasm, and then Lou is in full control of the board. Absolutely cleared everything. Blue is a very momentum-based deck in that it needs Faeria collection. It needs to have these small creatures survive to buff them up with Aurora or Mirror Phantasm. It needs to then combo into your bigger Windfalls, Mirror Phantasms, Dream Reavers, that sort of thing. So denying your mono blue from having any creatures on the board is very impactful in leading to a win here. Looks like Engywook's just going to kind of all in for the Dream Reaver, possibly.
Yeah, I'm like, how... Yeah, like, I'm trying to figure out now. Like, I think you don't drop the guard. right?
No, I would
Like,
expect that you don't, because then you don't have the Faeria or the lakes. Like you'd need an extra lake or +1 Faeria to play the Dream Reaver next turn. Could go for the guard in the top left corner because the Sagami Grove Caller doesn't immediately represent killing it, but red
mhm.
green just has so many options at giving that extra 1 damage. So yeah, I really like the play to not go for it here, and looks like Engywook's going to
Also,
go for it the Dream Reaver next turn.
at least a good thing with the Imperial airship is that it does heal you. It does give a lot of things once it comes down. And it's gonna get cheaper the more damage NG takes. So I mean, it could be fun to see if it actually has a chance of kind of pulling him back. But he obviously needs to draw some more cards then to get more healing. But oh, it's yeah. And at the same time, Luke obviously now just gonna start dropping his stuff.
Yeah,
See if
I
it
think
does
as soon as Engywook went for that lake in the middle position, Lou kind of realized what's up, what the play was going to be with
which
the Dream Reaver. So just going for the full aggro.
Well, where do you go with the Dream Reaver at this point? Do you go back defending like we talked about earlier? Should you defend or do you go aggressive? You have to go aggressive.
Currently 9 and then Flame Burst. Well, your opponent has 9 damage on board, which means you're at 5 life essentially. So Dream Reaver could go just aggressive. You don't use the dash, and then you have to play a land and hope that you draw into an enchantment next turn. If that's how kind of desperate Engywook thinks he is, I think that's the play. I don't think you
Well,
dash forward. I think you play aggressive. Oh, does actually dash defensive. All right, so he is going to play for a long game.
hmm.
Maybe go for something like the Radiance to represent the end of the game here, but really needed to get the Dream Reaver down, even just to have something else on board for this Crackthorn Beast
Oh boy.
to hit.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
7, 8. There it is. So Ground Shaker should clear the Dream Reaver, Axe Grinder to the Orb, and then set up Lethal 4 next turn. And this is looking like Lou's game to win.
You will not survive. Well played.
I don't think there's anything that Engywook can draw. He can't quite get to Radiance here. Yeah, just
No,
so
he
tough
lost
in
the
that
game.
spot.
I mean, what do you do when your opponent has 4 pretty healthy creatures knocking at your orb with 7 health?
Yeah, and that's it. So Engywook took game number 1, but Lou stormed back 3 straight wins with that red-green. Very impressive series overall. Couple things kind of here and there. Maybe it was the nerves of playing in his first tournament for Engywook that could have been maybe some different lines in the end. But that concludes this match, of course, with Lou advancing. Let's send it back for some analysis on these games.